Get out of my way, I'm in a hurry. Julian Croft yelled at Ava Martinez, kicking her cleaning cart aside with such force that the supplies rattled precariously. It was a Tuesday in March in New York City, and he was on edge, fighting off a hostile takeover attempt that threatened his company. Ava just lowered her head, murmuring, "Sorry, sir," as she shrank against the cold hallway wall. At 45, Julian Croft commanded a private equity empire in Manhattan. His Savile Row suits cost more than his employees' annual rent, and he carried the arrogance of a man who saw the world as a chessboard and people as pawns. To him, Ava was less than a pawn. She was dust on the board, an invisible blur in his path to the top. "Chloe!" he snarled at his assistant as he stormed into his panoramic office. "Ooh, how many times do I have to say to keep the cleaning staff off my floor when I'm arriving?" Chloe, who had worked for him for nearly a decade, knew his short fuse well. "Mr. Croft, she was just doing her job." "Her job?" he scoffed, throwing his leather briefcase onto the glass desk with a dull thud. "Her job is to be invisible. People like her don't understand hierarchy. They think they can occupy the same air as us." From the hallway, Ava heard every word. At 43, she was used to it. The grey uniform of the third-party company was her cloak of invisibility. But invisibility didn't mean deafness. She heard everything, saw everything, and stored every barb of humiliation in a quiet corner of her mind. The day proceeded with its usual tension until a FedEx delivery changed everything. It was a rigid envelope with international stamps, addressed personally to Julian. As he opened it, his confident expression dissolved. Inside was a series of documents in a language he couldn't even identify, filled with strange accents and an alien grammatical structure. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, flipping through the pages. "Looks like code." Chloe approached as the shouting began again. "Chloe, come decipher this! Someone sent me hieroglyphics." She took the documents, her trained eyes searching for any clue. "Mr. Croft, based on the structure and the stamps, it appears to be Hungarian, and it has your company's name here." "Hungarian?" Julian laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Who the hell does business in Hungarian? This must be some kind of sophisticated scam." But when Chloe pointed to a series of numbers, followed by the euro symbol and an expiration date, he realized it could be serious. "Then find a translator, now." The hunt began. Chloe called every elite translation agency in New York. None had a specialist in legal Hungarian available for an urgent job. As the hours passed, Julian grew more furious. "What do you mean? No one can do it. I'll pay whatever it takes. We're the center of the financial universe, and nobody in this city speaks a European language." The news spread like wildfire through the office. Analysts and associates, curious, tried using translation apps, but the legal jargon rendered the results gibberish. It was then that Jessica from finance brought the news that terrified him. "Sir, legal documents from the European Union often have a strict response deadline. If ignored, you could forfeit your rights by default." Julian examined the papers again and saw the date, stamped in red, today's date, with a final deadline of 6 p.m. New York time. It was almost 3 p.m. He began to sweat, the idea of losing an unknown opportunity gnawing at his composure. "This is ridiculous," he yelled to the audience of employees now gathered, "a firm of my caliber paralyzed by a piece of paper." And then his arrogance reached its peak. He held up the documents and announced to the entire office, "Listen up, everyone. I'll give my entire monthly bonus to anyone who can translate this garbage. $50,000 for whoever can decipher this alien language." The office erupted in laughter. $50,000 was a joke of epic proportions. "For that price, I'll become fluent in Klingon in 5 minutes, shouted Mike from the sales department, to everyone's delight. In the midst of the mockery, a figure watched in silence. Ava, organizing her cart in the hallway. paid attention. As she got close enough to see the papers Julian was waving, her eyes widened, not because of the language, but because of what she could read with perfect clarity. These were not business documents. They were papers for an international inheritance, detailing a legacy of 15 million euros left by a distant relative. Ava swallowed hard. The documents explained that Julian had been located as the sole living heir of a great-uncle who had passed away in Budapest. But the deadline was real, until 6 p.m. that day, to confirm receipt and begin the process. She looked at the clock, 3:30 p.m., and there was Julian, the man who treated her like dirt, joking about the greatest stroke of luck of his life. She felt a wave of indignation mixed with a sense of power. For 2 years, she had been humiliated. Now, fate handed her the chance to turn the tables. She took a deep breath. "Excuse me, Mr. Croft," she said, her voice firm. "I can help with the translation." The office fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the cleaner. Julian stopped laughing, disbelief stamped on his face. "You what?" "I said I can translate the documents for you," Ava repeated, her posture erect. "I know the language." The laughter that followed was deafening. Employees doubled over, laughing. The multilingual cleaner, the joke of the century. Julian laughed so hard he ran out of breath. "Oh, that's rich. The cleaner is going to make me millions by translating Hungarian." He had no idea how close to the truth he was. "Look here," Julian continued, wiping a tear of laughter. "The woman who can barely push a cart wants to solve a problem that no one in this city could." Ava didn't flinch. "Sir, I am not joking." Her seriousness was unsettling. "I can really do this. Of course you can, and I can fly. Get back to your mop and let the adults work," he said. But something in her firmness bothered him. "You offered your bonus yourself," she insisted. "I'm merely taking you up on your offer." "Fine," he relented, wanting to end the scene. "Since you insist on embarrassing yourself, the chance is yours. But when you fail, I want an apology for wasting our time." He held out the papers. "Go on, genius." Ava took the documents, and the moment her eyes focused on the text, her expression changed. It was as if a light turned on inside her. "A level kesbesites," she read in a low voice, with impeccable pronunciation. "Tadje kostatja, Julian Croft Urat." The silence in the office was absolute. That fluency couldn't be faked. You're reading that?" Julian stammered. "Yes, sir," Ava replied, her eyes still on the paper. "It says, 'Dear Mr. Julian Croft, we are writing to inform you of the legal status of the inheritance left by your great-uncle Joseph Croft, who passed away in Budapest.'" Julian's jaw dropped. He had a great-uncle in Hungary. More shocking was hearing this woman, whom he despised, translating it perfectly. "Continue," he ordered, his voice a whisper. "Your uncle Joseph left an inheritance valued at 15 million euros, Ava continued, her voice calm and professional. "As the sole living heir, you have the legal right to all assets. However, you must confirm receipt of this notification by 6 p.m. today, New York time, otherwise the inheritance will revert to the Hungarian state." Julian looked at the clock, 3:50 p.m. Panic seized him. "How do you know Hungarian?" Ava folded the papers. "I was a senior linguistics consultant at McKinsey & Company, Mr. Croft. I specialized in emerging Eastern European markets. I worked there for 15 years. The shock in the office was palpable. The woman who cleaned their bathrooms was a former consultant from one of the most prestigious firms in the world. "What happened?" Chloe asked. Ava sighed. "I exposed an internal fraud scheme involving a major client. I was fired for breach of trust, and my former boss, a very powerful man, made sure I was blacklisted from the entire corporate sector in New York. With my husband unemployed and my daughter needing expensive medical treatment, I took the first job that paid the bills and offered health insurance." The story landed like a bombshell. Julian felt the weight of his own judgment. "Are you sure about the translation?" he asked, his arrogance giving way to doubt. "Besides Hungarian, I am fluent in German and Russian," she replied, "and my focus at McKinsey was precisely on contracts and international succession law." To prove it, she took out her phone and called a contact. "Hello, Hungarian consulate. This is Eva Martinez. Could you confirm the authenticity of a document for me?" She read the codes and, after a brief conversation in fluent Hungarian, hung up. "Confirmed. The inheritance is real." The silence was heavy. Julian knew he had no choice. "How much do you want?" he asked. "You already made your offer," Eva replied, looking him in the eye. "Your monthly bonus, $50,000. Julian swallowed hard. "Accepted, but it needs to be ready by 6. "It will be," she said, "but I'll need an office, a computer, and no interruptions." As Eva headed to a conference room, the office buzzed with whispers. The invisible cleaner was, in fact, the most qualified person in the room. At 4:45 p.m., Eva emerged with a stack of papers. "It's done, Mr. Croft. Full translation, with notes on Hungarian law, and the response letter drafted. It needs to be sent via international courier immediately." The work was flawless, more professional than anything his own lawyers had ever produced. This is incredible," was all Julian could manage. "It's my job," she replied simply. "Eva," he began, uncomfortable, I've treated you terribly. There's no excuse." "Thank you for acknowledging that," she said, her expression neutral. "You'll get the $50,000. But beyond that, I want to offer you a real position, Director of International Analysis, a salary of $200,000 a year with full benefits." The offer took her by surprise. I need to think about it." "Of course," he said, grabbing the documents. "But Eva, thank you, not just for the translation, but for the lesson." As he rushed to the FedEx office, her colleagues approached her, one by one, apologizing for their mockery. For the first time in 2 years, she wasn't invisible. She was Eva Martinez, and her journey was just beginning.